Let's have a conversation. Tell me what you think about the issues of the world. What kind of spice you wanna be? Tell me where you wanna travel. Do you believe in luxury? What's your hidden passion? What makes you so unique? Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole.
Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. Today's discussion is on the importance of breastfeeding and support for nursing mothers. Lorie Asifor-Tuoyo, a retired certified nurse and midwife whose graduate studies research was on the lack of breastfeeding support for African American mothers, shares her experience. Let's listen in on the conversation. So Lorie, you are a nurse, former nurse, and you specialize in midwifery and dealing with pregnant women and their births. You have extensive study with nursing and things surrounding mothers of different racial and ethnic backgrounds. So I want you to tell me a little bit more. This is Women's History Month,
Right.
and we are talking about breastfeeding today.
Yes.
So tell me something about your breastfeeding experience from the standpoint of what you studied and learned.
Right. Well, as you said, I'm a retired certified nurse midwife. I worked in women's health and midwifery for almost 20 years. I took care of lots of women as an OB nurse first before I went and got my license as a nurse midwife. So I've had breastfeeding experience from that perspective, and also personally, I breastfed all four of my sons. I have four sons, three of which are adults now, and one teenager. And so breastfeeding has always been something that's been near and dear to my heart since I did it as a young mother. As a matter of fact, when I was in graduate school in 1997-98, my thesis at University of Florida was on the lack of breastfeeding support in the African American community, because it was something that I saw not only myself and experienced in my family and in my circle, but professionally also at the hospital. I saw that very few African American women were planning to breastfeed.
And why was that?
What I learned during my studies, my research, was really it's a lack of knowledge or misconceptions about breastfeeding in the African American community. One, for myself, I know that I was not supported in my choice to do that. Not even by my mother was like, "Oh my God, why do you want to do that?"
Really?
She actually said, "That's not natural."
Did she not breastfeed
Yes,
you?
she did not breastfeed me or my
wow.
brother. So,
Okay.
which I contributed that with my research as more of a sign of the times that she was born during, because my grandmother, who had 21 children,
Oh my goodness.
breastfed,
Okay.
and my aunts breastfed.
But they kind of probably, your grandmother probably didn't have much of a choice
Right,
back then
right.
because there was no formula.
Right, and that's the key right there, the formula. In the 50s, what I found in my research was in the late 40s and the 50s, particularly when childbirth also was moved out of the home from the care of midwives and
Into
taken
the
to the hospital,
hospitals.
became a medical procedure with physicians. Formula was also created. And so formula became a status symbol per se.
Really?
Because you had to have money to be able to buy formula, and most poor women did not have money to buy formula.
Okay.
And so it became in vogue to be able to bottle feed your baby and give your baby formula.
Wow.
And so from there, people got away from breastfeeding.
Okay.
And so because of that status symbol, it fell out of favor. And then you also had a transition with moms going to work, having to leave the home and go out and work. And so that created a lot of barriers also because of being separated from the child, and there's just not enough. Even now, that's one of the biggest things that women struggle with is, if I work, how can I breastfeed if I have to go back to work? So that lack of information about how to manage breastfeeding being away from the baby.
Well, I noticed in the Affordable Care Act that there is a provision in there that says that employers that have more than 50 employees have to provide a space other than a bathroom for their employees to be able to express their milk.
That is correct.
And I think that's a great provision. So it appears that we are moving kind of back to our roots from the standpoint of it not being a vogue thing, if you will, to bottle feed, but breastfeeding, because the breast milk is the best nutrition, the best thing
Yes.
that you could feed your child.
Yes, yes. And you're right. With the Affordable Care Act and the law covering women's right to breastfeed, to express their milk, once again, it goes back to information. A lot of women are not aware that they have the right to do that. And some employers
Don't realize
don't know
that
and don't
there's-
realize.
that
They'll
there's a
try to say, well, no, I
requirement.
don't have anywhere for you to do that, or I don't have time for you to do that. You can't take a break to do that. But they are they are covered by
violation.
law.
Yeah,
they're in violation of the law if they do not
don't
allow nursing mothers time to express their breast milk or even breastfeed. A lot of women are becoming more knowledgeable about breastfeeding and the benefits of it again.
Right.
And so that's the main thing, is really promoting the benefits to the mother and the baby that can't be duplicated by formula. I always used to tell my patients, formula is cow milk. It's
Yep.
for baby cows.
Exactly.
And so if there's any way that a mother can express her own milk to give her baby, then that's the best thing for the baby. There's no substitute for that.
This segment is brought to you by Brown & Brown Attorneys at Law. Stay tuned for more conversations.
Any way that a mother can express her own milk to give her baby, then that's the best thing for the baby.
So what, I know we've talked about some of the nutritional benefits of breastfeeding, but what other benefits are there as it relates to it?
Well, if we talk about the baby, first of all, like we've said, it's optimum nutrition for the baby. The breast milk changes to provide everything that the baby needs for every stage of its life, from the colostrum in the first few days, which is nutrient rich. It's full of antibodies to boost the baby's immune system, but that immunity carries throughout the whole time that you're breastfeeding. At certain points, the fat content of the milk changes depending on the baby's calorie needs, but it also reduces the risk of diabetes and obesity later in life for babies that are
Wow.
breastfed. There's data that supports intellectually that it boosts their brain growth and their intellect
I've
because
seen
it's
something on
uniquely geared towards the baby and what the baby needs, so it promotes better brain growth and higher IQ. You get the
You could
argument
tell.
between the people, well, I wasn't breastfed and I'm smart, but who knows how smart you might have been if
Right,
you were breastfed.
if you were breastfed, right,
So there's
right.
always that debate. But for the mother, there's also, first of all, we have to look at too, in most undeveloped countries or places where breastfeeding is very prevalent. First of all, you have a natural contraceptive aid. If women strictly breastfeed for up to 2 years, that can help provide a lot of natural spacing for births. And ideally, 2 years in between each birth is ideal for a mother, for the body to completely recover from one pregnancy and childbirth. But
And then there's a healing that takes
there's
place.
a healing that takes place, yes, during that time.
And with the breastfeeding,
With the
correct?
breastfeeding. If you start breastfeeding, if you look at breastfeeding immediately after birth, which is what I always like to do if I can, is put the baby right to the breast. Immediately, it helps shrink the uterus so that decreases the bleeding that the mother has, because still the number one cause of death in childbirth in the world is hemorrhaging after delivery.
Really?
So if you put the baby to the breast and you're able to get the baby to start breastfeeding, then it starts contracting the uterus, which is just a large muscle. It makes it contract down and helps control the bleeding. So that's the initial benefit right away
So
after birth.
a great benefit to
Great
the
benefit
mother.
to the mother, especially if you are in an area where you don't have emergency services, those things that we're so comfortable with here.
Right.
And then for the mother, also over her lifetime, she has protection against breast cancer.
Okay.
There's data that shows that women that breastfeed have lower incidences of breast cancer later in life.
Wow.
Also uterine and endometrial cancer, because generally when a woman breastfeeds for, if not the entire time she's breastfeeding, for a long period of time, she has no menstrual cycle. So when you look at the connection between ovarian cancer and some uterine cancers, the ovulation and the hormones increases that risk. So when she's not ovulating, she's decreasing that hormone exposure. So that's another benefit that women get from breastfeeding. But if you look at emotionally also, oxytocin, the hormones that are released during breastfeeding, that creates that sense of love and that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get. it's very beneficial psychologically to the mom.
And it
when
probably
you
will
stop
help
think
with
about
postpartum too,
yes,
depression.
that was the point I was going to make with that. It helps with postpartum depression because you get that sense of well-being and that chemical balance with moms. And as we see now, fortunately, we're getting a lot more information and spotlighting now on postpartum depression and psychosis. So yes, you also get that benefit with the mom, that bonding.
What would you tell young mothers that are thinking about breastfeeding their child?
I would tell them to learn everything that they could learn, connect with local support groups. We do have lactation consultants on staff at the hospitals. There's La Leche League in the community. There are traditional groups that have been around. But there are a lot of groups now that have formed in communities for women of color. And so I would definitely say to young Black women or women of color, seek out some of those groups. They have internet groups, they have Facebook groups, some local community groups, so that you see people that look like you that are going through the same thing, and also having a chance to network with people who can share their successes with you. Everybody comes up with what works for them. And sometimes when you have questions about something, another mom that's gone through that might be able to answer that question for you. But it's more supportive. If you have a young Black mother, 20 years old, trying to breastfeed, and she sees another person that looks just like her, and they can share that experience, then that's something that is really going to help increase their success rate with breastfeeding.
What is the importance of the family in supporting the mother with her breastfeeding efforts?
That's critical to the mother's success, because being a new mom is tiring, it's frustrating, you're not sure what you're doing all the time. And so family supporting that, particularly the father. The father is a primary support system for her during that time to realize that it's physically draining, it's tiring, but if he encourages her, then it increases her chances of being successful with breastfeeding, because if he's encouraging her knowing that she is the only one that can produce that for their baby, that she's the most important person in the world for their baby, and she has something that nobody else can make for the baby, that is so empowering to the mother. So I always say that fathers are critical in the success of breastfeeding, that mother has that support.
Excellent. That support is very important.
Yes,
So
yes.
thank you for sharing that and your experience. I expect to see you in the community doing some more great and wonderful things.
Well, this is one of the things I hope to do. I definitely would like to get our breastfeeding rate with our moms of color up to, I know 100% is out of reach, but at least 80, 90%, I would love to see that happen.
Well, that's definitely a goal to shoot for. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure being here.
Okay. Stay tuned for more conversations.
This segment is brought to you by Brown & Brown Attorneys at Law. Stay tuned for more conversations.
Joining me now is Mrs. Trishay Yata Burton, a FAMU graduate of psychology and social work, but also a supporter of breastfeeding. She created the group Melanin Mothers. Welcome, Trishay.
Thank you.
So, breastfeeding. It's Women's History Month. We're talking about the importance of breastfeeding, how women uniquely can give birth and can breastfeed their babies. I know you are a recent mother. Yes.
Yes.
And you breastfeed.
Yes.
And you have been breastfeeding for how long?
17 months.
Okay. And what's your thoughts about that?
It takes a warrior to want to do what I do, and I know plenty of them, so I'm thankful that I come from one, and I appreciate everything that I get from the knowledge. So I'm thankful for breastfeeding. Breastfeeding for me is very spiritual, very sacred, and it's not anything that you joke around with. You're either going to do it or you're not, and if you're not, then you need to find out why you're not, and not just say no because your mama didn't. So yeah, it's definitely something that you definitely want to dive into directly, and you don't want to joke around with it.
So the group Melanin Mothers that you created last year in 2016, correct?
Correct. Melanin Mothers Meet.
Melanin Mothers Meet, and the purpose of Melanin Mothers Meet is what?
The purpose of Melanin Mothers Meet is to bridge the gap of melanin mothers across the globe. So not just here in Tallahassee community, not in just California, not in Georgia, but, in Africa, in Asia, and whatever continents that we can, run our fingers through, those are the ones we want to get to.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's to support mothers in what way?
we want to support mothers naturally. We want to bring them back to the basics, as Mama Seta would say, and we want to make sure that they are clear with why they're coming back to the basics, because what we're going through now currently is nothing basic.
So tell me about what your breastfeeding experience has been like. Is that what prompted you to start Melanin Mothers, or?
So breastfeeding alone did not prompt me to start Melanin Mothers Meet. What prompted me alone to start Melanin Mothers Meet was the birth of my child. My child's birth was very peaceful. It was very wanting, and if I could do it all over again, I would, because it was natural feeling. There was no pain. There was nothing hard about it. It was very blessed.
And you did a natural birth at your home?
Yes, I did a natural birth at home. My mother was present. My mother actually assisted with delivering my daughter, and as well as my doula, Akila McQueen, and she was phenomenal. Phenomenal
And for
doula.
our audience that doesn't know what a doula is, tell us what that is.
So, in my own words, and this might not be by book,
That's fine. That's what we
but,
want, is your words.
you know, my own words are very specific. A doula is a doer. That's the person that's going to come in and give you that prenatal care that the doctor or even midwife might not be able to give you. They're going to give you that emotional support. They're going to be that system of collectives in one person that you need to really understand why you're going through what you're going through, and when, and what you need to do in order to, you know, balance it out, or, you know, soothe yourself, whatever that you need to do. So they provide you that as well. On top of that, they also are like, you know, many social workers. So if you need some information, then they know the source to get it to, then they connect you. And so that's pretty much what Melanin Mothers Meet is. Melanin Mothers Meet is like a huge social working network where we're putting out different resources to different women that need it, that might not have that available to them just in their regular community, you know, the community that society gives us and says that we have. But our community is much greater and much better than what society gives us, you know, separately. And so I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful to be able to put women together that are, you know, available first, because they don't have to be available. They don't have to do this. They don't have to want to have this drive with Melanin Mothers Meet and actually bring forth their desired needs for their children and for the upward mobility of their children. And our children need that upward mobility. They need that strength. They need that push from our community, because if they don't have it, then they will not be productive.
Okay. So Melanin Mothers Meet recently had a breastfeeding forum.
Yes.
And there were several midwives and doulas and social workers that were present that shared their knowledge and experience with the audience. Tell us a little bit about that event.
Oh, man. You see, I just have to breathe out, because it was truly that powerful. It's something that I've always wanted to see come forth in our community, especially just about things that are natural and feminine and things that are women. You know what I mean? And we don't really have enough women femininity around, you know, and femininity get things going. You know, we're water, we get everything flowing. We need that energy, you know, on land. And a lot of people don't really know how to balance those two out. So what happens is we tend to, you know, stray away from things that are really important to us and for us, that are that comes from us. You know, we stay away from us is something that I always say. We won't flock toward each other. You know, we flock away from each other.
So this meeting was an opportunity for women to come together.
Exactly. Women to come together, and women to be able to sit and be comfortable with one another, and to really hash out and receive things that they've not received before. So things that have to do with why formula was even created. Why are you even selling us formula? What is your reasoning on selling us formula? Because it's not to nurture our children. It's not to give them that nutritional value that they need. So what else is it that you're trying to do? So, I grew up with a mother that's very black and white. So it's either A or B. You know what I mean? So you're either here to help us live or you're here to help us die. It's pretty much how it goes.
So did you all discover why that has been removed or breastfeeding has been substituted for formula in your discussion?
Yes. So, what I learned from the women that were on the panelists, and they were amazing, it was like having a whole university plus more in one building for 2 hours for free. You know what I mean?
That sounds interesting.
It's very interesting. So, you have all these ways to pull different knowledge from people's different experience. Not only do they have the degrees and the accolades and the, everything behind their name. They have a lot behind their name.
But experience,
but the experience
which is
matches.
Rich. Yeah.
So you have experience and academic knowledge in one building, under one roof at the same time.
Right.
For free.
It's huge.
So, and for it to be as powerful as it was, I know some things now that I would do differently, market it a little better. But just for the knowledge that was there, it was worth, from the knowledge, the marketing that was done, it was worth more than what it was given.
Did you find out that there is more support out there for women that want to breastfeed their youth than you anticipated?
No, not than I anticipated. I pretty much was thankful that it was what it is. So I appreciate that.
Sister Yata, tell me about some of the events that Melanin Mothers Meets has coming up on their calendar.
So we have a photo shoot coming up, and the photo shoot is for marketing purposes, and I'm just very thankful that I'm doing what's in my divine timeline. And so what happens is I say I want to do something and people appear. And it happens just like that.
And who's going to be in the photo shoot?
So I'm going to have a grandmother, I'm going to have 2 mothers that are pregnant, I'm going to have 2 mothers that are breastfeeding small children, and I want them to be able to come together in a circle of love, wearing all white and different colors, fabrics, and just really make it pop in the sense of making something in you bulge up, making something in you bring fire, bring forth that, provoking that thought that gives you different from what you thought before.
So intergenerational womanhood.
Exactly.
Love it. Okay, anything else you all have coming up?
So we also have a meeting coming up, and the meeting is pretty much going to feature Mama Seta and Miss Daikebra, and they're going to speak on their knowledge and just kind of go even further into what they were talking about at the panel discussion.
Okay, so more on breastfeeding.
Yeah, so more on breastfeeding.
And holistic child care.
Holistic child care. They're also going to talk about beyond the mother. What do you have to do beyond being a mother, beyond breastfeeding, beyond things that you normally are, set forth to do when you have a child. But because being a woman is way more than just having children and feeding and making sure that they are together, because you have to make sure that you're together. And if you don't make sure that you're together, then the children can't be together, so then it's a big mess. And you don't want a big mess.
No, you don't.
Especially with children.
So care for the mother as well.
Yes.
That's important.
Yes, exactly. And I'll have more meetings like that. Right now I'm looking more so for once a month, just because I want to give the panelists a kind of, one-on-one with, more people in the community at an individual level, because it's very sacred and it's very needed and necessary for the community. I'm going to give them, keep giving them chances to get these knowledgeable women in their ear and hear what they have to say.
Well, you are a dynamic woman in and of yourself. So I want to thank you, Sister Yata, for joining us today for Conversations with Nicole. Keep doing what you're doing in the community and celebrating our melanin mothers and their melanin children and just helping, supporting. We need all the support we can get.
Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Nicole, where we connect the community through conversations. For more information on this or previous shows, visit Conversations with Nicole on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I am Nicole Everett, and we'll see you next time.
Conversation.